Good day, guys. Now let's jump off to our next topic, the principles in materials evaluation. I am Franz Rees, and in this lecture, I'm going to share to you the evaluator's theory of learning and teaching. But before that, let's first take a look in this diagram. So you can see words like evaluation, driven, principles, validity, reliability, and mistakes. And these words are all interconnected in such a way that evaluations should be driven by a set of principles for two reasons. Number one, so that validity and reliability of the materials can be achieved. And number two, so that fewer mistakes are likely to be made. And that is the importance of the principles in evaluations. Now, let's move to the evaluator's theory of learning and teaching. Number one, language learners succeed best if the learning is a positive, relaxed, and enjoyable experience. I bet all of us here are familiar with the quote, "Experience is the best teacher." And for language learners to successfully learn a target language, the language teacher should engage them in the learning experiences that are, of course, positive, relaxed, and enjoyable. Well, this also includes a friendly environment wherein everyone can feel that they are recognized and valued. The learners are more likely to learn a language if they are enjoying the learning process, if they are relaxed, and if they can feel that they are part of the whole. Next, language teachers tend to teach most successfully if they enjoy their role and if they can gain some enjoyment themselves from the materials that they are using. So this theory only states that to make language learning successful, it is also important that the learners are not just the only ones who are enjoying the learning process, but also that the teachers, in terms of their roles and the materials that they are employing in the language class. Of course, it is true that it is easier to teach if you can feel a sense of enjoyment in what you're doing, right? And this theory is somehow connected to the third theory, which is the learning materials lose credibility for learners if they suspect that the teacher does not value them. So, I mentioned earlier that the success of the language teaching lies in the teachers who enjoy the materials that they are using. And if your students can see that you are not putting a value on these materials, then they will think that these materials will not gonna help them to learn. They will think that this is not credible and they end up to not engage with these materials at all, which makes them to have a hard time in learning the target language. And you know, guys, these materials are very relevant to the learning process because most of the time, the teachers and the students will rely on it for the entire language learning. So teachers should be really the ones who will show the students how important these materials are. And number four, each learner is different from all the others in a class in terms of his or her personality, motivation, attitude, aptitude, prior experience, interests, needs, wants, and preferred learning style. With this, it is important that language teachers should employ varied strategies that are appropriate to the preferred learning style of each learner. And in this case, the language teacher will be able to cater all the needs of the students despite their differences. Next, each learner varies from day to day in terms of motivation, attitude, mood, perceived needs and wants, enthusiasm, and energy. Isn't it frustrating if you did everything just to motivate them, but still you can see that they are not ready to learn or they are not ready to listen? And how can you handle a class wherein half of your students don't pay attention to you? Like they are giving you this bored look. Well, language teachers should be really good observers too. If you can feel that your students are not motivated enough, maybe it's time to take a pause. Let them breathe for a moment, let them have their time. And it's like you're conditioning their minds and bodies before you proceed to teaching again. Number six, there are superficial cultural differences between learners from different countries, and these differences need to be respected and catered for. But these are also strong universal determinants of successful language teaching and learning. So as language teachers, our job is to not just teach the target language, but also to learn about our students' cultural backgrounds and to embrace their cultures by modeling respect and acceptance. By doing these things, we can easily teach them according to their own culture, and then learning the target language will be much easier for them. Next, successful language learning in a classroom, especially in large classes, depends on the generation and maintenance of high levels of energy, and the teacher is responsible for the initial generation of energy in a lesson. Good materials can then maintain and even increase that energy. Guys, no one learns in a class that has a dull atmosphere. It is true. So the teacher's job is to set the mood for the students, create a lively and motivating climate for the class, and then utilize materials that can maintain or add spice to the energy that the teacher sets for the class. Next, learners only learn what they really need or want to learn. It was mentioned by the first reporter, I think it was mentioned by Ms. Mikaya Grace Impante in her discussion, that if the learners were not interested in what they were learning, they won't learn it at all. That's actually true as a student. Learning should not be forced. Only the learners know what they need and what they want to know. We should not try to inject everything into their minds because it will just make them unmotivated and repulsive to learning. And no matter how many things and contents we share with them, if those things do not interest them, we're just wasting our energy and our time. So it's better to assess the students' needs and wants and preferences in learning. Next, learners often say that what they want is focused language practice, but they often seem to gain more enjoyment in learning from the activities which stimulate them to use the target language to say something they really want to say. With this, the language teacher should provide them with learning experiences in which they get to use the language to express their thoughts. In this case, the students are learning at the same time they are enjoying the learning process. Learners think, say, and learn more if they are given an experience or text to respond to than if they are just asked for their views, opinions, and interests. This theory only states that the students should be given many opportunities to share their thoughts without limiting them to just share what are their interests, their views, or opinions about a certain topic. I guess they can participate in debates and speeches while of course using the target language. Next, the most important thing that learning materials have to do is to help the learner to connect learning experience in the classroom to their own life outside the course. So this is really the purpose of the material, to help the learners relate their learnings inside the classroom to their own lives. Because if they can connect these learning experiences to their own lives, they can easily apply them to real life problems. And applying what you have learned in school in real life situation is the best outcome the learning could achieve. Next, the more novel or better still bizarre the learning experience is, the more impact it is likely to make and it is more likely to contribute to long-term acquisition. The traditional way of learning, such as listening to a lecture, reading a book, or finishing an assignment, are just learning experiences. But students nowadays are more likely to remember the lessons through their most unusual learning experiences. What do we mean by this? It just simply means that students nowadays are learning in various ways, and language teachers should carefully provide them with more unusual learning experiences so that they can have a long-term acquisition of the lessons. Next, the most important result that learning materials can achieve is to engage the emotions of learners. Laughter, joy, excitement, sorrow, and anger can promote learning. However, neutrality, numbness, and nullity cannot. As a language teacher, it is really important to know that learners learn best if they are learning by heart. And that is only possible if the materials that learners are using engages the emotions of them. So all the emotions that the learners are portraying are very important. There you go, guys. I have shared the evaluator's theory of learning and teaching. Thank you very much for listening and good luck to your quiz.